And I'm Sochi, and welcome to Tracy's Place of Hope.
Sochi is gonna show you the dining room and the kitchen.
Hi. Well, this is our dining table. This is where all the magic happens of eating, which is the best. This is where I come and I cook and I set the oven and I start to cook. Okay? And I like it. Like, I like how it's so spacious and we can walk around like freely, and I can tell people not to come in if I don't want them to. And I think it's just like, I really enjoy the freedom that I have to move around and like put things all over these counters. It's really nice, and I like to put a lot of things on here. And just like the times that we spend together in here when we're like just doing art projects or anything, or just anything like that, we need this big table, and I love it. Like, we can all just sit around here. It's like a round table, but it's square, rectangle. And yeah. Oh, and then I love that I'm the cook in this big place, because it makes me feel like I have my own little cook show, because I don't get that. And I really enjoy that I get taught all these wonderful things here in this kitchen, from how to chop onions, tomatoes, mince, and stuff like that. I just enjoy it all. Now let's move on to the living room.
Okay. This is our living room. This is like a time and place where we have family nights. We come together as one, and we just kind of hang out. We do Bible study here. We do our homework here if necessary. We have our laptop that we use, and just a place for us to like do homework. In here we have our cabinets where we keep all our materials, our binders, stuff that we need to be organized.
Okay, well, this is also our couch, and every new month our house mom, she gets us these new pillows, and like I think it was last month where we got this green pillow, and it's just, I love it. Like, it makes me feel like cared for, and I just love the designs. Obviously, like, they're so pretty. There's like pink ones, there's green ones, there's blue ones, and it's just, I love them, and they're comfortable, like this couch in this house.
Okay, this is our art room. This is where we come together as a family, and we do crafts together. A time where we can just sit down and color a book if we're feeling emotional, or like it's therapy, I would say, for me. It kind of helps me like deal with my stress more. Just being able to color and draw out how I feel.
Okay, and this is our library. Personally, for me, I like it because I get to read. I like to get away in a book. Like, I just read it and I zone everyone out. Sometimes I get in trouble for it, but it's worth it. And then you see up here these trophies, like these trophies are just the best. Like, it just reminds me of like good times that past residents have had and the recent ones. And you see that weird one right up there? I won that, but it's good. It's just great. It's just like a great time of like remembrance of the good times that we had, and I just really enjoy being in this area because it's a quiet area, as well as back there. That one's more quiet, but this is the library. And this is the quiet area, and this is also where like some of us come and work out or do yoga, or like even have like little family meetings back here if we want. Maybe we can have some like, if our families are into privacy like that, to have little family visits, as well as anywhere in the house.
Okay, this is our outside. In the summers, we have our friends come over. We have barbecues. I mean, like every day we have barbecues, and we have our friends come over. We swim. We play games out here. It's just a time for us to interact with one another and build community and friendship.
Okay, well, let's go back here where our rooms are and the bathrooms are at. Well, look, this is our bathrooms. And before, I heard it was really small in here, but I'm so thankful to God because this is such a great, it's just so spacious, as I said before, in the kitchen. Like, and there's 4 sinks and 2 showers, so 2 people can shower, 4 people can brush their teeth all at once, and there's different mirrors for each sink. So I think that's really great for all of us. It shows us to share and to be, what is that word? Be comfortable with each other's space and respect our spaces. And I just really enjoy that because sometimes there's 2 people at a sink and they just have to be like, all right, we have to share this. And I just enjoy that. I like to share sometimes.
This is my room. What do I talk about? I have a perfect view. Every morning I wake up to a perfect view of the sky. This is my bed. I'm very grateful for just the opportunity to even have a bed, and just like when I was younger I never really had a bed. I was, either on the streets or just sleeping on couch, and being able to have a bed to sleep on and a comfortable bed where I'm warm and stable and I feel safe to even lay my head down and fall asleep is just very grateful and blessed for that. We have 3 mirrors, super big, and 3 mirrors. So I'm very grateful for that.
Oh, hello. Well, this is my room, and as you can see, like, as it says up there, this is my happy place because it's my own space. I can take off my shoes if I want to. I can do whatever I want in here. This is my dresser. As you can see, it's very clean. I like to keep my space clean. And you see these little shells? I collect little pebbles and little things at the beach, and these are all my friends. And this is my house mom and my friend Sally. And what I really enjoy about like this place here is that we get to make things like blankets. I love making these blankets. Like, this blanket is like my favorite because I made it and I got to choose the style and things like that. And then here's like a view of the pool and like of just the green because I love to look out into the night sky at night, especially when I'm asleep. And the 3 mirrors, as Bree said, is awesome because I don't have to share this because we can all look at each other for the both of us. And then I have my roommate. She's the best. As you can see, she enjoys basketball a lot. And that's what I like about this place. They put 2 people together and it just works out great because you get to build a closer relationship with your roommate. And thank you for joining us on our house tour.
Why don't we just start by introducing ourselves and who you are, what you do, and how you may have contributed to this project.
Would you like to start?
No.
Then I will.
Thanks, Bill.
I'm Bill Ryland. I am the director of Koinoma Homes for Teens. As a program, we operate the drug and alcohol mental health program that these girls are part of. We have 5 homes out there specializing in that one product, one treatment, as well as our own high school. We have a public high school that nobody else gets to go to, and a treatment clinic. And then we also do a couple of specialty programs. We do one for Placer County, which is early intervention, prevention, with the whole design to keep kids out of the system in Placer County. That's called the Crisis Resolution Center. And then we also operate a site for Kaiser that we do a step down out of their psych hospital. So we work kids coming out of the hospital after a psychiatric event, 5150 and such, and prepare the family and the kids to go back home. And so seven homes in total.
Thank you, Bill.
I'm Camille Ryland. I am the director of community outreach. And so that's how Kelly and I have gotten together. And my job is to bring the community into the lives of our foster kids and have the kids come into their the community's lives, just realizing that there is quite a need for support for our foster kids. But that's half of the story. The other half is having the community realize that these kids are doing a lot of hard work on themselves, and they have hopes and dreams, and they're achieving them. And so the community needs to know that our kids, our foster teens, are making it. So.
My name is Krystal Dennis, and I used to be at Tracy's Place of Hope, Koinoma Home for Teens, when I was a teenager, 18 years ago. And I went to UC Berkeley High School of Business, and now I work for Kaiser for the last 10 years in software. And I sit on their advisory board, and I volunteer with the home still because was so impactful in my life, and I want to give back to the girls now.
I'm Kira Stewart. I'm the principal at Art Consulting Services, and so I'm the one on the panel who is not specific to this project. So our tagline at Art Consulting Services is when art is more than art. And so in over 500 projects in Northern and Southern California, we have the opportunity to go in and partner very closely with the interior designers and the end users to really see what the goal of the space is, and to have art make the most difference that it can. And sometimes that involves focus groups and other things like that. So I'm excited to be part of this tonight.
Thanks, Kara. Okay. Let's get started. So, and in general, these questions, if it applies to this home, we'll go off of that, but it's also open to any other similar projects or homes. So, and I will start with Bill, as he's eyeing that food. What is the single most important space or detail that brings a sense of comfort and safety to the brand new residents coming to a home?
That's a bigger question, and because of where our kids come from. These kids are coming off the streets, are coming out of some pretty, come from around the state. Our kids are come from far and wide. I think just to understand the impact of what we present, you have to understand what they know and what they don't know. It is so important when a young person only knows a curtain-closed, smoke-filled apartment as a reference point for home, or less. You know, homeless, living in a car, many of our kids. To have the contrast with an open-air, bright, non-smoking, clean home, and as you see, they keep it immaculate. That's part of the program, is keeping our space nice. It's first and foremost a contrast. What do they know? Well, now they have a choice. They know what they did know as a child, and now they know what they have known at Koinonia. That was one of our founders' big things, is we're going to produce the nicest houses kids have lived in by design. And so, you know, you look at the various elements of a home. Of course, the space to do the treatment. Treatment is what we do. To have the quiet space in Tracy's Place of Hope where staff can just sit quietly and talk with a young lady. The therapists that we have, every house has a therapist assigned. The amount of treatment that happens is paramount to the comfort level of the kid. It is connected to the comfort level of the kid. At the house you saw, the biggest deal is the bathroom. Girls love the bathroom. Is that what they connect with? Well, eventually. That's what makes it home. It's that time in the morning with all the peers. We operate what's called a positive peer culture with their peers. That is a little party. So the space, you saw Soshi just spinning in her kitchen, her space. It is just such a contrast, and virtually at every turn, I think the design that Kelly put in there has that emotional comfort, emotional soothing texture about it. They didn't really show you some of the features as you look down the hallway and the piece of art or the piece of what is that? Is it artwork? What is that? The panels. It's lovely, and it just feels good. So I think you can't ignore any part of the home. I don't think there's any particular part that's better. The bedrooms are the kids' castles. Those are their personal space. So that's a big deal. But the bathroom, I have to give it all up for the bathroom.
Krystal, any space or detail that really brings that element of comfort and safety?
Yeah, well, just to add to the bathroom real quick. In the video, you
It's a big deal.
there is another half bath that I think was important too for people coming in and out of the house to be able to use that half bath instead of in the girls' bathroom. And so that wasn't there prior to the remodel. And I lived in it prior to the remodel, and it's so much nicer now, and I'm pretty jealous. Yeah, for comfort and safety, I think the bedrooms is, and like a lot of the girls didn't have a place to sleep. I think there was a time in my life where I remember being on the couch as well. And so, yeah, I would say the bedroom's a big safety room.
Anything else to add at all?
Well, I'm Kira, and this is the thing I love about the bathrooms is that you all are all top interior designers, and you're at the top firms in Sacramento. And so I would imagine that when you're walking into a space and you're starting to talk to the end users, one of the things you're doing, if you do your job really well, is ask a ton of questions, right? And hopefully you're asking questions just outside of the scope of interiors and more to the purpose of the space, because we could bring all of you into the same space and you would do 20 different amazing, breathtaking designs. But to me, the person that would be the most successful is the person that asks the most questions of the users so that you understand the nuances of how the space is going to be used. So the bathroom's an excellent example that if there weren't enough questions asked in the beginning, then someone could have logically said, oh my gosh, well, the common spaces need to have the most excitement with the interiors, or they need to have the most money spent, or they need to have the most thought put in them, and the bathroom's just the bathroom. But if your user's a 15-year-old girl, then maybe you need to spend a lot more time designing the bathroom and worry less about, you know, another space. And that's the same, so in art we take the same approach that you do in interiors, and we found out, because we do a lot of clinics and we do a lot of hospitals, that if you're a pediatrics patient in a clinic, then you're spending a ton of time in the waiting room, and the waiting room's real important, and the exam room is important, but not as important. But if you're in a hospital, if you've ever walked into a pediatric ward of a hospital, the waiting rooms are small and they're usually empty. Because who's the most important person in that scenario? The pediatric patient. The pediatric patient spends all their time in their patient room. And so when we had a focus group and an advisory group on a women's and children's hospital that we did for Sutter down the street, we learned that, just like the bathroom example, we learned that the waiting rooms, which normally would get a ton of attention in a clinic, needed very little attention and very little money spent, and that we needed to pay a lot of attention to the patient rooms. So to me, that's when we all do our jobs the best, is ask questions like that to find out things like that.
Well, that was what was so wonderful about Kelly. She brought in the 6 girls, and the 6 girls did not get to have the opportunity to actually live in the houses that they were choosing. And so she brought all the kids in and gave them little sticky dots, and all the pages on the window of all the different styles, different colors. And so what she was able to do is give these girls a voice for the next generation, giving them an advocacy that they know that they're not going to be able to receive it, but they are doing it for others who are coming afterwards. And so we have that as a heritage. We tell that story. We tell them that other girls made these design choices for you because they wanted you to have this feeling. And so that's what's awesome about what Kelly had done, is she was able to give our kids a voice, which girls need in foster care.
Thank you. So transitioning from the comfort element of the spaces, what are some spaces or details in the environment that can bring a sense of healing and spark change in the teens? Open to anyone.
Well, let me kind of set a starting point in place, because you need to understand who we're working with, who we're dealing with, and why this is so important. Of course, we've told you that we run a drug and alcohol specialty program, mental health program. The amount of trauma that these young people, particularly our young ladies, have gone through to get here is so significant. They are undeniably the highest at-risk population in the nation. 100 of this age group die a day. So that's 35,000 a year between violence and overdoses and suicides and all that. So with that said, what do we do? What is the most important thing we do? And what I think has been brought to our attention in working with Borges and Kelly particularly is gaining that subconscious level of safety and comfort that we were just discussing, and the openness to do the work that we do, to create that environment, to have the inroads in, to discuss some of these really hard topics. I mean, you're talking about young ladies that have been around the block, have been abused and exploited, trafficked. And so back to the question. I had a point to this. The question was?
Sparking change and healing within those.
There it is. How do you engage with that level of trauma? Well, relationally. You have to really be on a caring, loving, and playing with these young ladies. We do all the treatment. We do EMDR, we do equine therapy, we have art therapy, but it is that one-on-one time where somebody feels safe, somebody feels vulnerable and willing to expose, to become genuine, transparent. That is the healing aspect of it. So all the therapies bring them to those one-on-one relationships with the staff, with the therapists, and everything we do, including our homes, our space now, we're so much more conscious of that, brings them to that point, because it's necessary. Without it, the consequences are high. This is a group that doesn't, this is where our adult problems come from. This is where homelessness comes from, and addiction and incarceration and parentless children and all those things. So it's important that we bring the whole package together in one place, one time, right now, at 15, 16 years old, before they have had that opportunity to have drugs reap its destruction on families. So, and that's the measure of success. Do they come back 18 years later? Do they come back with a toddler that's loved on, hugged on, kissy-faced? And we've broken that chain, and it is those opportunities in the homes that really are the deal changers. A therapist can do something, but it's our staff, the quality staff we have, sitting in the quiet space around the corner with us, with that one-on-one conversation where what the therapist said gets challenged, applied, realized. It's not in the therapy session, it's later. And that's where those environments are so important.
Anyone else on how the spaces can support the healing and support change?
I agree 100% in that, and I'm going to add that the space is creating the person. They are at a very vulnerable time on who they are. I mean, it's teenage years. Even if they haven't had an abuse or a dysfunction in their lives, our teenagers are thinking, you know, our own teenagers are, who am I? You know, who am I going to be? What do I want to do? And with these spaces, it allows them to have that reference point we had mentioned earlier. It brings stability into their lives. It brings detail into their lives as they see beautiful things. Beautiful environments create beautiful people. And that is what they're just taking, this is just the way we live. And just to translate that into a heritage that we're hoping they'll go to that next step when they have their own apartment, that they'll remember that it's very important to have a pillow, you know, and it's very important to do these different things. And that is what our hope is.
I have something, go ahead.
Okay. I would just say, right now I'm leading a group with the girls every week, and we're going over renewing the mind, generational patterns, forgiveness, and healing past hurts. And so, but right now we're doing it in the living room. But sometimes when you're doing family therapy or group sessions, the in and out of the office or in and out of the front door, it can be distracting. And so there's another phase to this project where they're going to do a counseling center in the backyard and another space for one-on-one sessions for counseling with the social worker and the girls. And so and they have 5 other homes too, and I would hope there's more space for group therapies and counseling. Mm-hmm. And then also I would say that just the home, because it's so gorgeous and beautiful, and I think the girls really feel valued from that because people are investing in them and investing in their future. And I think that, and maybe not getting that in their families and not getting that growing up, and then having someone say, like, you're worth it in this design, and not go cheap and not go into, like, some of the homes can look like 1960s, and that's what it looked like when I lived there.
Adira was the 1960s.
I wasn't born yet. So yeah, the house I think does create a lot of healing.
I learned from the video how important pillows were. Yeah. I didn't know that. Talking about the investment into me, buying a pillow was that investment to Doshi. Yeah, she loved the pillows. Go figure. What a cheap therapy.
And speaking of color, this is a statistic you guys will like. The eye can perceive over 7 million different color hues. And so for all of you that are interior designers, you know, I always love coming into your offices because you have those magic rooms that are floor to ceiling bookcases of binders of all the finishes and all the stuff and the big tables, and it just looks like Santa's elves, right? You know, you're just making things, and it's just magical. And but as far as to the question, bringing healing and sparking change, we've done, unfortunately, another thing that's really common that we probably have all been touched by is cancer. And you know, most people, if they haven't battle it themselves, they have a friend or a family member or a coworker or somebody who has. And we've all heard too many stories of that. So one of the things we do a lot of is cancer centers. And so we went into a couple of cancer centers thinking that, well, biophilia, meaning the impact of nature on the human physiology, which is a really powerful thing that you all probably heard that, like petting a cat or a dog lowers your blood pressure, and it also lowers the cat or the dog's blood pressure at the same time. So that, that's where like the equine therapy that you all offer is so incredible. So so we thought, okay, we'll bring beautiful, soothing nature images in, because these folks that are experiencing cancer must be really stressed, and therefore we're going to give them beautiful, soothing imagery. And I've had the pleasure of working with a number of you in this room, so I'm just going to call somebody out. So Dana, over here down the table, we were working on one of these projects with her, and we showed her this beautiful, soothing imagery for the Cancer Center, and she said, no, 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 wrong. No, no, no. She was much nicer than that, but she had gotten in the weeds and really talked to these folks, and we hadn't done that yet. And so she taught us that we needed to ask even more questions, because you can't just say healthcare. You have to say, what is a cancer patient experiencing? Different than an occupational health person, different than someone who's in a corporate environment, in a training center, in a training headquarters. And what we learned from Dana and her users, and the time that her firm had spent with the patients themselves, is that cancer patients want to be inspired because they're fighting for their life and they are warriors. And they don't want to see a soothing little meadow. They want to see Mount Everest. They want to be like, that's the cancer, and I'm going up there in my bare feet if I have to. And so we were just, wow, like we hadn't thought that deeply about that specific experience versus another one. So yeah, it was pretty amazing.
Thank you. So we've talked a lot about the individuals and how the spaces and details affect them. And as Bill said, high-risk individuals, and Camille, I love what you said, how the space is creating the person. Let's talk more about the group as a whole, and I'll start with you, Krystal. What spaces seem to be the most used and are the most important in bringing everyone together?
I think probably the living room and the kitchen are the most used, probably that TV.
Yeah.
It's used a lot. But I will say, before, how the house looked when I lived in it, it was all closed off. So when you're in the kitchen, there was actually a sliding glass door to get to the back of the living room. And you have to be supervised when you live there. So no one could just go into the other part of the house without a staff, and you would have to ask permission. But now that it's all open and you can see, you don't have, there's more freedom to roam around, and they're in eyesight. So that is a big change, and I think was very effective use of this space.
The staff still need to do their job. They still have to supervise.
But they are,
and it makes it easy.
They're
to,
not very
business.
obvious, though.
Yeah.
They don't realize
That's
that
a
they're
great
being
point.
supervised. I think the kitchen and the dining room, we make sure that we sit down and have dinner. We make sure when the kids come home from their day at school and therapy that they have a snack at the large rectangle and tell us how their day went. And so we have chores. Every girl has a chore, and guys, we have guys' homes also. And they rotate, so they know how to do kitchen prep, kitchen cleanup, all these different chores. And so we sit down and eat the meals that the kitchen prep has learned how to cook. And they talk about their day and they have that conversation. I think that's the most connection that the girls and the staff are able to have. There's something about breaking bread and eating and conversation that breaks down walls and creates a familiarity. We also try to have ethnic food to embrace our kids. because we do have our kids from all across the state of California, and so they come in, and we want to make them feel that this is their home temporarily. We cannot replace, mom and dad, but just to make them feel comfortable and learn more about what they have eaten and whatever. So the dinner table.
I don't know questions until the end, but go for it. What's the duration of the stay? It's about a year. Is it a year?
Yeah.
I was there 18 months, but
Well, it is.
I need a lot.
It takes a little bit in the beginning. But what it did, we've just realized, just doing it for the years that we have, that it takes about a year to 15 months to get it from here to here. They have to embrace it. It's behavior mod. We're asking them to do things, or we're kind of insisting them to do things until they own it. And then they do it on their own, and this is just the way they do things. And so they then teach the new kids as a positive peer. So you'll have a senior resident or a teen take on the newest child and teach the ropes on how to do things. And so it's a positive peer and be able to believe it.
How many girls do you have in the house at a time?
It's licensed for 6, but we have 2 girls' homes, so we have 12 girls.
So that's still pretty intimate, like a family. Yeah, yeah.
So it's a family of 10. So we have staff and
Lots of
kids.
staff. I have twice the amount of staff as I have kids. We have 42 kids and 95 staff.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know.
Best hotel in town, man.
Wow.
24/7 awake. We never sleep. We never close.
Kira, so Camilla touched on the chores and some lessons learned and things like that. Any input on how you might intentionally design these areas to make those sort of goals that you might have in mind more feasible?
That's a great question, Sam.
Thank you.
We're working on 2 spaces right now for the PACE program, and PACE is a federally funded program for fragile, low-income seniors above the age of 55, and it's one of the fastest growing populations in the United States. Something like every 8 seconds or 8 minutes, someone falls into the 65, senior category. And there's a large group of folks that are seniors that can, if they didn't have a ton of help, would have to go probably to a county facility or end up homeless. And as any of you who's ever had an aging parent or grandparent knows, when they start to get a little confused, when they start to get a little forgetful, when they start to get a little wobbly on their feet, those of you that have kids, it's like that flashback to like, oh my gosh, my mom or grandma is now like my 2-year-old. And it's so terrifying because they become that trusting and that vulnerable, to all kinds of awful things. So this program is one where it's like a day center. So the goal of the program is to keep them in their homes, but up to 5 days a week to go get them, bring them to the center, and give them engagement with other seniors, and give them meals, give them medical care. The PACE program actually takes over as their HMO provider. So if they were formerly with Kaiser or Sutter or Dignity Health or UC Davis, this program takes that over. And one of the biggest goals with folks like that is to get them participating again, because they're so prone to depression and isolation and feeling like they don't matter anymore. And so in the big dining room and common spaces, we actually did 2 focus groups where we brought a lot of these folks together, kind of like what Kelly did with the teenagers. And we had a bunch of clinicians in the room, and the clinicians thought, as did the interior designers, as did the art consultants, that of course we would have excellent choices for artwork to support seniors. And we all had fabulous ideas and fabulous suggestions. And then we put the seniors in the room. And so we showed them pretty landscapes, and they said, this is a direct quote, "We're old, but we're not dead, and we don't want to be treated like that. Those look like those boring pieces I see in the dentist's office." Okay, and again, thank heavens we ask. And so the punchline basically is you'll never believe what they ended up choosing. So for their big day room, because the goal was to engage them and get them in conversation, not pretty landscapes, not abstract pieces, not beautiful photography of the surrounding area. We were thinking, oh, let's help locate them where they live. Let's remind them they're in Sacramento. Maybe they're kind of forgetting that. They wanted 60s imagery of iconic musicians like Jimi Hendrix, right. I mean, rock and roll. Yes. Isn't that great? Isn't that amazing? Like, and they all were like, they went from not participating very much in the focus group and looking a little sleepy or kind of like, oh, I got dragged to this thing, I don't know what I'm doing here, to like, that's so-and-so, and I was at that concert, and we showed them iconic things like the Kennedys and the March on Washington, and they were like, I was at the March on Washington. I mean, they came alive. It was like we electrified them. They were so engaged, and so that's going to be where a lot of the money is spent in the design of the art for the space there. So it can make I think everything you guys do about opening up the spaces, the colors that you choose, the wayfinding, everything that you guys spend such an incredible amount of time doing, and then we're kind of the cherry on the sundae. If we all do our job right, then the purpose of that space is realized.
So I want to build on that. You mentioned color of the space. How can specific colors change or help their attitude in a space?
Well, so okay, I'll ask you guys. If I show you, you might have this in your house. If I showed you a picture of a park bench with nobody on it, in a pretty park, in winter, in a cloudy day, with no leaves on the tree, how do you feel?
Lonely.
And if you're a cancer patient, you think that's a metaphor for dying. That's how you see it. And so there's a tradition that Kaiser follows, which is they only want artwork that evokes what they call the spring and the summer palette, because they want every image to be optimistic, because they're trying to create an environment of healing. So I'm working with Ashley on a Kaiser space down in Los Gatos right now, and that is, they really want to celebrate the local landscape, this, that, and the other thing. And when you get end users in the room, it's hard for them to break away from their particular personal favorites, because I know a lot of people that would love that tree in winter and that park bench. They would love that, or they would love the really cool colors. But then you as designers have to go, okay, what's the mood of all the cool colors? Do I need to bring a warm pop of color in my accent color if I've got a lot of grays and beautiful tans? Do I need to have a lime green or a little bit pediatric happy orange in this other space, because otherwise I'm kind of feeling a little too that way, and we want to have it feel optimistic. So color is crucial in your role and in our role.
So Bill, Camille, Krystal, what are some areas in that specific home where that plays a big role?
Pillows.
Pillows, yeah.
Well, they knew. They were identifying what they liked and what they saw, and those are silly. They were excited about the pillow per month. I don't know if you guys heard that. I picked up on that real quick. We buy one a month because we're foster care. We don't have lots of money, and they anticipate their pillow and the color, and it was interesting. Yeah.
The one thing, if I can jump in on the color, though, remember in the beginning, I thought this really stood out, stuck with me for a long time, is we put some vibe boards up that had different color palettes for the gals, and we had some happy colors, we had some really great rock and roll, intense, fun teenage stuff. And then we had rocks and water, and all the girls went there. They said, we like sprinkles of this, but we love this because it feels peaceful, it feels restful, and it's not noisy. So they liked bits of that, and that's where that came into play with the rooms with the brighter colors. But the overall palette is just sort of like stone and water, and so they could just be, and their spirits could just be and not have all that noise.
Because,
Remember that?
yes, and it is so important because their program is very intense. We don't mess around. It's life and death, and so it's kind of like a bubbling. We just don't want it to bubble over. You know, we don't want it to go crazy, but we're trying to get the dross. We're trying to get all the hurts out and for them to confront it. And so when they come home, they're kind of tired. They need a place to regroup and rest. And just with Sochi, with the green pillow, it was, I feel cared for with that green pillow. And it was not any of the pretty pillows. It was a solid green pillow, and it was a very,
Probably the texture of it.
yeah. So that was important to them.
So, Bill, we talked about the bathrooms and the bedrooms kind of being sanctuaries, and the open kitchen with the large island, and the living room with the pillows being nice open spaces. How important are those closed, private spaces versus the open spaces? And how do you design, in addition to that, how do you design the room to kind of promote one or the other, or a nice blend of the two?
That was one of the things that we got to design in. The little privacy room, the what did they call it? The quiet area, was actually added onto the house. That started at the original back of the house. And I think again, I'm thinking as from a treatment aspect, without the dinner table, you don't get the private time. Without the living room, without the bathroom, you don't get those quiet one-on-one serious talks. They just don't happen, they're earned. And so the quiet space is good. We'll go to the kid. Their walks are great. Working with a kid driving, if you got teenagers coming, get in a car because you don't have to look at each other. You're looking straight ahead, talking, and you'll get the most honest, transparent conversation you'll ever have. And so taking walks is very therapeutic. Driving with the kids is very therapeutic. But that little quiet space has turned into just a jewel. The book area is another quiet space. Actually, that's Krystal's doing. She went and she didn't buy loaner books, she bought 10 copies of every book so they could take it. They didn't loan, they got. If they liked a book, they got to keep their book. And so that was her give back to that project, was that library. I think it's very important, but it's not first. It's definitely an after the fact earned opportunity that happens in all those other common areas.
So Kira, you painted that very depressing winter picture for us. Thank you, with the bench and the cold weather. And Krystal, you mentioned how the house that you were in was stuck in the 60s, which turns out Bill actually really likes. So, Camille, how can a poorly designed space negatively affect the youth?
It is very obvious.
Specific examples?
Well, did you see me visualizing our one of our houses? We actually did get a grant to do a small remodel, not like Tracy's place, but we have creative names. House number 1 had a large dark wall that separated the kitchen between the living area, and we had to, eyesight supervision, and so we would chase the kids around the kitchen and the living room, just chasing them constantly, and they knew it, and they, it was a real stress, and it became adversarial. because, you know, I don't have any life. You don't trust me. All these things that are coming up in them. And we understood that, but we still have to see what you're doing because, you know, we have to keep you safe. And when that wall came tumbling down, we put in the grant was for a teaching kitchen. And so we were able to bring it all down and have a bar stools with a counter space and then the two stove tops. And so our teaching kitchen would teach half of the kids, so 3 of the kids on one side, while the other 3 would learn what they're doing. It made the difference in the house when the kitchen wasn't going on. That's just one day a week for the class. The home settled down. The acting out stopped because we were not being on their necks, it felt like, you know. We were still doing the same supervision, hands-on, but they didn't feel it, and it just made all the difference in the world.
The kitchen skills are vocational, or are they just personal skills?
Well, vocational and personal. We realized we are a family of 10, so we were teaching them how to make big casseroles and realized, well, wait a minute, they're going to go to college. They're going to need to how to cook for one person economically. How is this big casserole going to work for them if they don't know how to do those, you know, top ramen, you know? We don't want that. We want, you know, healthy food. And so that's where we incorporated getting education. Where we found what was neat is we found kids that thought maybe culinary arts is where they wanted to go. They had no idea that was a wonderful direction that they've gotten. So we've had kids go, being a foster child, they're able to have funding. They've been able to go into a culinary school and go towards their dreams. So
The intention was to teach them how to cook for 1 or 2. Yeah. The outcome was far beyond that. It was great. I think we probably had 6 kids enter the culinary field as a result. Yeah. Mostly boys, yeah. They finally love to cook.
Well, I think we can all agree the use of the space and the design had a positive effect on everyone involved, so well done. And with that, I'll open up the table to any other questions that anyone might have about any of this. Yes?
So they're only there a year or 18 months. And so they go back to other foster care afterwards?
All of the above. Our population, we're usually working all with adolescents, teenagers. So the possibilities are the foster care, going from us, coming in at 15, leaving at 16, going into foster care. There is things like NRFM care, which is non-related family care. Some of our 17, 18-year-olds, our school is actually a one-room high school that's the highest rated alternative school in the district. It's so high that it's accredited. So I got kids going to college, I got all sorts of things. So some kids are moving into the dorm, some moving her into the workplace. So you're setting them up in their own place and getting them the financial means to support themselves. And then sadly, there's kids that go with the new home family finding emphasis of the state, going right back to the same hell that they came from. That's pretty popular right now.
We're hoping that they have enough tools in their tool belt to be able to
You have to
survive.
prepare a kid to go back to an actively using home. So all of the above.
And so teenagers that are foster care, rarely they don't get adopted.
No, none get adopted. Yeah.
Well, never say never.
Well, that's true. Well, that's not true. We did. We had the young lady that came out of Yolo County that went back and got adopted by
the family. Her sibling and her, the younger sibling, they were part of a dual adoption, but she was with us for her substance use and went back and got adopted. So yeah, we have adopted one. I feel really accomplished.
And at this point, we'll open up the bidding.
Sounds like you need to adopt me.
Any other questions?
So how does a young woman get lucky enough to be placed with your program?
Good question.
Well, without getting into too much negative speak, we're the deep end. They've had to fail their way up to us. So they had to fail in a outpatient, drug court, in-county assistance of some sort, ankle monitoring, all that kind of stuff. And so we're kind of the higher level. So, and it's amazing looking at those two young ladies who are just wonderful kids, but they were hardcore. Little Soshi's a hardcore gangster. And won't go home, I doubt. She can't go home. That's where the gang is. She can't go back to her home county, and will choose not to. She'll go to probably Sierra College. Sierra College out by us, we're in Placer County, is unique in that it's a community college. It has dorms, one of the very few. And so we have a great relationship, and we work placements. We have a kid get ready to enter the dorms in another month. So they sadly, what they go through to get to us is, as we talked about, the early trauma. And then the reality of even coming to us is traumatic. Being placed with these strangers in a strange home, a strange city, they don't know us. I mean, we're wonderful, but they don't know it, truly. And I mean, it's a traumatic thing to walk in our door. So that's where we're starting. We're starting with base trauma in the moment, and then you work through that, and then you start working through the historical, lifelong trauma that for some of these kids started way early, sadly.
So are all the residents in the house at different stages of treatment?
Very fluid. The school's very fluid. They come and go at their timetable. Yes.
So how many on-staff people are actually in the home?
It takes about 10 to run it completely, 24/7.
So we have 2 night staff, awake night staff.
Okay, 2 overnight staff, yeah.
Anything else? Any other questions?
I just want to say that this is the best forums event that we've had, that IID has had. Very inspiring, and just hearing, how not just design affects a person, but how people are affecting them. So I find it very inspirational to hear these stories, and I'm sure that sometimes the day-to-day happenings isn't as, colorful and flowery as it sounds. Or you make it sound right now, because you guys are really inspiring. So I'm just interested in hearing a little bit of what you're planning on doing for 2018. Is there any changes that you're doing with curriculum, or is it kind of a similar process that you're planning to do?
Well, do you have an hour?
Yeah. California changed everything. They did. Congregate care is going away. So if you're familiar with the term group home, group homes are no longer licensed. If you're not treatment, there's no longer congregate foster care. It's treatment or nothing. And so that's changed everything as far as where these kids can go, what they can receive. It's an interesting time in our field.
So is that beneficial or detrimental?
It's just what it is, and where our mind is. It's the structure that we have to work in, and so we're not going to allow that to stop the creativity that needs to happen. We need a music program. We need
A dance program.
all the different areas of therapy that can produce what's happening inside them. If they talk therapy, it takes so long. But if you can get art therapy, it's amazing. That white page is so intimidating, but once it starts, the paint starts going on it, you know exactly what they're going through. They can't hide it. And so we're able then to have our clinicians help and talk, and that's where our conversations happen. And so I'm wanting a Koinonia Academy just to be able to have all these different stationary rooms to be able to go into, having dance therapy, you know, drumming out drugs, you know, there's a psychology of that helps heal the
we
abuses.
have a bunch of drums to do percussion therapy and no place to do it.
No place to do
Sad.
it.
They stay stored. And you go, oh.
So that's what we're looking for. You know, we always want to go forward. There's so much, and
And the needs are so big.
yeah, and we have to stay ahead of what our kids' needs are, just so that we don't fall behind and not meet their needs, because the kids are different today. There is so much more abuse, and suicide is an option. It's never been that before. And so we have to be on guard and prepared, and have a facility or a program that can meet that individual child. And so that's what we're going to be doing. Not retiring, but
to our kids, yeah, retiring to our kids, the legalization.
Yeah, no retiring.
The legalization of marijuana put a stamp of approval on it. It's okay. Well, just like alcohol and alcoholism, we still have the issue, but our kids don't perceive it that way. And that's always what you're working, and that's one of the things you're bringing them into this environment to get. You gotta realize you can't start with drugs are bad, because for most of my kids, they were the best thing that ever happened to them. They were absolutely, so for us to say drugs are bad is either you're stupid, you don't know, you gotta try it sometime, or you're lying. And so it takes this process to work through a relationship building and all these things we've been talking about, which all fits into how you have those legitimate relationships, those honest relationships, and get this paradigm to shift from why they use, and they all have lots of really good reasons to use, get their eyes off of that, drip by drip, day by day, step by step, to why they would choose not to use. What your quality of life is, what the quality of your child's life is with you using drugs. Do you really want to go to college? Well, can you with using drugs? So go from why you use to why you choose not to use, and that's the year process. It takes 5 or 6 months to even get to a point where, okay, well, maybe I'll consider not using drugs. Drugs have never done anything bad to me. You're here. You know, I mean, really, come on. And so getting that to, oh, that's true. I got yanked from my home. I'm not in my school. I'm not with my friends. I'm in placement, yeah. Well, I guess drugs had a little negative effect. Well, click one. We'll take it. We'll start there, and we'll start working our way on over. And
what that looks like too is we have to get trust from them, and that's the only thing they have is their trust in people. And with the environment, I think that it really pulls it all together, because drugs were the best thing, not because of any strange experience. It's so that you don't feel. And so you have to have a safe environment to take a chance and feel. And if you open up that feeling, where is that going to go? It's very scary. And so we need to have a safe place for them. And that's what we find in Tracy's Place, and that really helps in that sense. And so they don't need to be numb anymore, that they can handle their emotions, their situations, and it's going to be all right. They're not going to fall apart.
You know, we talk about behavior mod. It's really reality mod. You're literally changing the reality on what could be. That's what you're going for, not behavior. Behaviors come and go, but reality is something different.
I have to applaud you guys on the fine work that you do and bringing this, like you said earlier, to this forum, because in a room full of designers, and we know how color and environment impact people's feelings and emotions. And kudos to you, Kelly, for creating the cool space for them, you know, to...
You got to come see it. It's beautiful.
Go for that healing, really. I mean,
Mm-hmm. She did a great job.
Yeah, and on behalf of everyone else, Kira, Krystal, Camille, Bill, thank you guys for your time. Thank you for your knowledge. We're all fortunate to have you here tonight, and you can now eat your food without fear of being called on. So.